Is this truly how our story ends? With the echoes of betrayal replacing the warmth of our family's laughter? I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears, as I watched my children, Sarah and David, their faces etched with a cold fury, turn away from me. The Thanksgiving dinner, once a beacon of unity, now lay in ruins around us, the untouched turkey a stark monument to our broken bonds. Just moments before, they had accused me of a crime I didn't commit, their words sharper than any arrow, piercing my very soul. The scent of roasting cranberries and sage, usually so comforting, now seemed to mock me, reminding me of all the Thanksgivings past, filled with stories of brave pioneers and resilient native tribes sharing their harvests. I had always tried to instill in them the values of forgiveness and understanding, values I believed were woven into the very fabric of this land, as enduring as the ancient mesas. But today, those lessons seemed to have vanished, replaced by a harsh judgment that mirrored the unforgiving desert sun. As they rose to leave, their backs stiff with indignation, I felt a tremor run through me. How could it have come to this? Was there truly no path back from this precipice of misunderstanding, no way to bridge the chasm that had opened between us on this day meant for gratitude? Their words, sharp and final, still rang in my ears. "We want nothing more to do with you, Father. This charade ends now." Sarah, always the more fiery of the two, had delivered the ultimatum with the force of a prairie wind. Her eyes, usually so full of warmth, now as cold as a mountain stream in winter. David, typically the quiet observer, had simply nodded, his silence a heavier burden than his sister's accusations. I remembered teaching them about the steadfastness of the cedar trees, standing tall against the storms, their roots deeply intertwined with the earth. I had hoped our family bonds were just as strong, just as unyielding. But today I felt like a lone tumbleweed, uprooted and adrift, at the mercy of a harsh wind with no direction home. The accusation of having squandered our family's legacy, a legacy they believed was their birthright, had been the final, devastating blow. As they moved towards the door, each step a hammer blow to my heart. I knew I had one last, desperate card to play. But would it be enough to stop them, or would it merely solidify their resolve to cut me from their lives forever? With a trembling hand, I reached into my jacket pocket. The small, worn envelope felt heavy, a repository of secrets and truths that had been carefully guarded for years. It was an artifact from a different time, a time when loyalty and honor were as vital as water in the arid plains, when a man's word was his bond, and family was an unbreakable circle. I thought of the old prospector's maps, meticulously drawn and carefully hidden, holding the promise of untold riches or bitter disappointment. This envelope, too, held a kind of map, a map to the truth, to a different narrative than the one my children had so readily believed. Its contents were a silent testament to sacrifices made, to battles fought in the quiet corners of my life. Would they even pause to consider it? Or would their anger, like a raging wildfire, consume everything in its path, leaving behind only ashes and regret? "Wait!" I managed, my voice raspy with emotion, cutting through the heavy silence that had fallen over the room. Sarah and David paused, their hands on the doorknob, but they didn't turn around. Their backs remained rigid, an impenetrable wall against my desperate plea. It was like trying to stop a stampede with a whisper. I recalled the stories of the lone wolf, howling into the vastness of the night, its cry a mixture of longing and defiance. I felt like that wolf, my voice a desperate plea against the immense, silent indifference of my own children. The air in the room was thick with unspoken accusations and years of misunderstandings, heavier than any dust storm. What did it take to break through such hardened resolve? What words, what actions could possibly penetrate the fortress they had built around their hearts? "Before you leave," I continued, pushing past the lump in my throat, At least take this." I held out the envelope, my hand shaking uncontrollably. It was a simple, unassuming thing, made of aged parchment, secured with a faded wax seal that bore the faint imprint of a family crest I had long forgotten. It looked like something from a forgotten era, a relic from a time when handwritten letters carried the weight of destiny. It reminded me of the old medicine bags carried by the wise ones, filled with sacred objects and ancient knowledge, meant to heal and guide. This envelope, I hoped, held its own kind of healing power, a truth that could mend what had been so brutally torn apart. But its power was not in magic, but in the untold story it contained. Would the simple act of receiving it be enough to spark their curiosity, to make them question the narrative they had so firmly embraced? Slowly, hesitantly, Sarah turned. Her gaze, still icy, flickered from my outstretched hand to the envelope, then back to my face, searching for what? A trick? A final manipulation? It was a look I knew well, a look born of a lifetime of wanting to trust but being constantly disappointed, like a prospector who has hit barren rock too many times. I remembered the wary deer, pausing at the edge of the clearing, scenting the air for danger, unsure whether to approach the water or flee. Sarah's caution mirrored that ancient instinct, a testament to the hurts that had accumulated over the years, silent and unaddressed, like scars hidden beneath weathered skin. The tension in the room was palpable, stretched taut like a rawhide rope. Would her hesitation give way to acceptance, or would she recoil, cementing the finality of their departure? David, ever the more pragmatic, spoke, his voice low and cautious. "What is it, Father? Another one of your schemes?" His words, though softer than Sarah's, carried a sting, implying a long history of deceptive acts on my part, a pattern of behavior that had eroded their trust like water carves canyons in the desert. I thought of the treacherous quicksand, hidden beneath a seemingly solid surface, ready to drag down the unsuspecting. His question felt like that, a trap designed to expose my perceived flaws, to confirm their worst suspicions. The accusation hung in the air, a silent judgment that resonated with the unanswered questions of our past. How could I convince them that this was different, that this was not a trick, but a desperate plea for understanding? "It's the truth," I replied, my voice gaining a desperate strength. "The truth you both deserve to know." My gaze met Sarah's, pleading for her to see past the anger, to glimpse the sincerity in my eyes that had witnessed the vast beauty and harsh realities of many seasons, eyes that had seen joy and sorrow in equal measure. I thought of the ancient storytellers, weaving tales around crackling campfires, their words carrying the weight of generations, meant to impart wisdom and understanding. My truth was not a story of myths, but a raw, unvarnished account, as stark and real as the sun-baked earth. It was a truth that had been buried like forgotten treasure, waiting to be unearthed. Would the promise of the truth be enough to finally break through their hardened defenses, or was it a promise they no longer had the capacity to believe? Sarah's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths, suspicion, perhaps, or a faint spark of curiosity. It was like watching a hawk circle high above, observing, calculating, before deciding whether to descend. The silence stretched, long and uncomfortable, punctuated only by the distant caw of a crow. I remembered the old legends of the spirits of the ancestors, whispering secrets on the wind, their wisdom often misunderstood or ignored by those unwilling to listen. My truth felt like those whispers, subtle and easily dismissed, yet holding immense power for those who chose to truly hear. It was a truth that had waited patiently, like a seed buried deep in the soil, for the right moment to sprout. Would that flicker of curiosity be enough to overpower years of resentment, or would it be extinguished by the cold flame of their anger? Slowly, Almost reluctantly, Sarah extended her hand. Her fingers brushed mine as she took the envelope. A brief, electric contact that sent a jolt through me, a faint echo of the warmth and connection we once shared. It was a fragile bridge across the chasm, a tentative truce in a war of wills. It reminded me of the delicate balance in nature, where even the smallest touch can have far-reaching consequences, like a single raindrop eventually carving a path through solid rock. This simple exchange felt monumental, a tiny step that held the potential for either profound reconciliation or a deeper rupture. The weight of the moment was almost unbearable. What would happen when she broke the seal, when the hidden contents were finally revealed to the light of day? David stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the envelope in Sarah's hand, his curiosity finally outweighing his skepticism. The brother's instinct, the bond of shared history, even if fractured, seemed to pull him in. It was like two wary cowboys, approaching a mysterious package left in the middle of the trail, unsure whether it held danger or a valuable clue. I recalled the times they had huddled together as children, sharing secrets and dreams, their connection as undeniable as the bond between a mare and her foal. Even now, in their adulthood and anger, that primal connection, however strained, still held a fragile power. The unspoken questions in David's eyes mirrored the turmoil in my own heart. Would the contents of that envelope bind them together in understanding, or would it tear them even further apart? Sarah's fingers traced the faded wax seal, her brow furrowed in concentration. She seemed to be weighing the significance of the moment, the potential impact of what she was about to uncover, like an archaeologist carefully unearthing a fragile artifact that could rewrite history. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath held, each beat of my heart a drum roll to the unknown. I thought of the ancient pictographs etched into cave walls, each symbol holding a story, a message from the past, waiting to be deciphered. This seal, too, held a story, a silent promise of revelations. It was a moment poised on a knife edge, between past and future, between what was believed and what was true. What unspoken message did that ancient crest, barely visible on the wax, hold for them? With a decisive motion, Sarah broke the seal. The soft crackle of the wax was the loudest sound in the room, a punctuation mark in the silence, signaling the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It was an act of courage, a willingness to step into the unknown, like a frontiersman venturing into unexplored territory. I remembered the sound of a branding iron searing hide, a painful but necessary act that marked ownership and belonging. This breaking of the seal, though less violent, felt just as significant, a symbolic act that would forever change the landscape of our family. The old scent of aged paper and something faintly earthy, like dry leaves, wafted from the opening. What secrets, what truths, would now be exposed to the harsh light of their scrutiny? She carefully unfolded a single yellowed sheet of paper. Her eyes scanned the elegant script, her expression shifting from suspicion to confusion, then to a dawning, stunned realization. It was like watching the desert bloom after a sudden rain, a transformation that was both unexpected and breathtaking. I thought of the intricate patterns of a spider's web, seemingly delicate yet incredibly strong, capable of trapping the unsuspecting. The words on that page, I hoped, would weave a truth that was just as intricate and just as powerful, capable of ensnaring their doubts and revealing a different reality. The silence was now absolute, broken only by the rustle of the paper. What words, penned so long ago, held the power to alter their entire perception of me? David leaned over Sarah's shoulder, his gaze falling upon the document. His initial skepticism quickly dissolved, replaced by a look of profound shock, as if he had stumbled upon a hidden vein of gold where he least expected it. He gasped, a small involuntary sound that spoke volumes. I recalled the legends of the old prospectors, toiling for years in the unforgiving earth, only to strike it rich when they had almost given up hope. This document, I prayed, was their metaphorical gold strike, a discovery that would finally bring understanding and, perhaps, even forgiveness. The shift in their demeanor was remarkable, a powerful transformation. What treasure, more valuable than any gold, was now laid bare before their astonished eyes? The document wasn't a confession of wrongdoing, as they might have expected. Instead, it was an official letter, dated years ago, acknowledging a substantial, anonymous donation made to save their mother's failing ranch, the very ranch they believed I had squandered. The sender, their father. My name was clearly printed at the bottom, accompanied by a small but significant seal of the local bank. It was like finding water in the vast empty desert, a life-saving discovery that defied all expectations. The truth was not a bitter accusation, but an act of profound, selfless sacrifice, hidden away for reasons that would soon become clear. The old, familiar scent of the ranch, of horses and dry hay, seemed to fill the room, a ghost of happier times. How could such a significant act of love and sacrifice have remained hidden for so long? Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a cry. Her eyes, now wide with disbelief, locked onto mine, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within their depths. Confusion, shame, and a dawning, terrible understanding. It was a look that pleaded for answers, for the context that would transform this revelation into a coherent narrative. I thought of the sudden, violent shifts in a prairie storm, the sky darkening in an instant, followed by a deluge of rain that washes away the dust and reveals the true landscape. Her emotional storm was just beginning, and I knew I had to be the calm center, the one to explain the reasons behind such a long-held secret. The silence in the room was now heavy with their unspoken questions. What was the true cost of that anonymous donation, and why had I chosen to keep it a secret? But why? David whispered, his voice hoarse, his gaze still fixed on the letter as if he expected it to suddenly change, to revert to the damning evidence they had imagined. It was the only question that mattered now, the key to unlocking the years of resentment and misunderstanding that had festered between us. I remembered the old legends of the trickster coyote, whose actions often had hidden motives, sometimes benevolent, sometimes mischievous. But my motives were neither. They were born of a desperate love and a desire to protect. The answer was not simple, not easily summarized in a few words, but complex and deeply rooted in the past. Would they be able to accept the truth of my actions, even if those actions had caused them so much pain and anger? I took a deep breath, preparing to finally unburden myself of the secret I had carried for so long, a secret heavier than any mountain rock. "Your mother," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "She never wanted anyone to know, especially not you two." The words hung in the air, a delicate bridge between the past and the present, between their anger and my hidden sorrow. I thought of the sacred responsibility of a storyteller, to faithfully recount the truth no matter how difficult or painful. This was not just my story, but their mother's too, a testament to her fierce pride and her desire to shield her children from the harsh realities of their financial struggles. It was a narrative of quiet dignity and unspoken sacrifice. What was it about their mother's wishes that had compelled me to maintain such a profound silence for so many years? She believed it would be a humiliation, I explained, a stain on her family's name, if anyone knew she needed help to save her ranch, and she was fiercely proud, as you both know. I looked at Sarah, who shared her mother's stubborn pride, and then at David, who mirrored her quiet strength. They were their mother's children, through and through, both her triumphs and her challenges. I recalled the unwavering determination of the first settlers, facing down hardship with a stoic resolve, refusing to show weakness even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their mother had possessed that same spirit, a strength that had been both her greatest asset and, in this instance, a barrier to revealing a crucial truth. The room was now filled with the weight of her memory. How could I honor her wishes while simultaneously repairing the immense damage her secret had caused? She made me promise, I continued, my voice barely a whisper. Promise to never reveal where the money came from. She wanted you to believe she had saved it herself through sheer will and hard work. The words were an admission of complicity in a deception, an explanation that was both painful to give and critical for them to hear. I thought of the sacred oaths taken by the ancient warriors, binding them to a path of honor, even if it led to personal sacrifice. My promise to their mother had been just as sacred, a silent vow that had shaped years of my life and, inadvertently, theirs. It was a promise born of love, but one that had led to a thorny path of misunderstanding. Could they understand the depth of that promise and the profound love that had compelled me to keep it? Sarah sank into a chair, the letter clutched in her hands, her face pale. "All these years," she murmured, "we accused you. We believed." Her voice trailed off, lost in the overwhelming tide of her emotions, a dawning realization of the injustice they had inflicted. The weight of their accusations, now revealed as false, seemed to crush her. I imagined the feeling of a sudden sandstorm, blurring the landscape, making it impossible to see the path ahead, only to clear just as abruptly, revealing the true, stark reality. Their understanding was now clearing, but the truth was a harsh wind, stinging their eyes with regret and shame. The air was thick with unspoken apologies and unaddressed pain. How would they reconcile the image they had held of me with this stark new reality? David, usually so reserved, walked over and placed a hand gently on Sarah's shoulder. His gaze, no longer filled with anger, was now soft with a profound sorrow, a silent acknowledgement of their shared mistake. It was a moment of sibling connection, a shared burden of realization that bound them together even more tightly than their anger had. I recalled the old stories of brothers, separated by misunderstanding, who ultimately found their way back to each other, their bond strengthened by the trials they had overcome. This was their moment of reckoning, a chance to mend not just their relationship with me, but also the fragile threads of their own understanding of their family history. The scent of wood smoke from the unlit fireplace seemed to whisper ancient wisdom. Would this shared revelation bring them closer to me? Or would the shame of their accusations drive them further away? I had to protect her dignity, I said, addressing both of them, my voice steadier now, infused with a quiet resolve. Even if it meant enduring your anger, your accusations. I promised her, and I kept that promise, even when it broke my own heart. It was a declaration, not of regret, but of unwavering love and loyalty, a testament to the depth of my commitment. I thought of the steadfastness of the old-growth trees, their roots reaching deep into the earth, their branches weathering countless storms, their presence a silent, unyielding monument to time and endurance. My love for their mother and for them was like that, a force that had sustained me through years of unjust condemnation. The room was now filled with a different kind of warmth, a fragile hope. Could they see past the immediate pain of their misunderstanding and appreciate the profound sacrifice behind my actions? Sarah finally looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. "Father," she choked out, her voice laced with remorse. "We were so wrong, so unbelievably wrong." The words were a balm to my wounded soul, a gentle rain after a long drought, washing away years of bitterness and misunderstanding. It was the apology I had longed to hear, yet never truly expected. I remembered the feeling of the first spring rains after a harsh winter, bringing life and renewal to the parched earth, awakening dormant seeds and forgotten dreams. Her words had that same power, a cleansing force that promised the possibility of new growth, a fresh beginning for our fractured family. The tension in the room, so heavy moments before, finally began to dissipate. Would this moment of raw honesty be enough to truly heal the deep wounds that had festered for so long? David knelt beside her, his hand still on her shoulder, his gaze now fixed on me, clear and unwavering. "We should have trusted you," he said, his voice heavy with self-reproach. "We let our anger blind us." His admission was a powerful echo of Sarah's, a unified confession of their error, a shared turning point in our strained relationship. I recalled the wisdom of the old elders, who taught that true strength lay not in never making mistakes, but in the courage to acknowledge them and learn from them. Their willingness to admit their error, to confront their own blind spots, was a sign of a maturity and an understanding that filled me with a quiet pride. The room was no longer cold, but held a tender, fragile warmth. What would be the first step in rebuilding the trust that had been so severely damaged? I slowly walked towards them, my heart overflowing with a mixture of relief and a lingering ache. "It's all right," I said, my voice thick with emotion, reaching out to them both. "I understand. I always have." My words were not just absolution, but a reaffirmation of my unwavering love, a love that had never wavered, even in the face of their harshest judgments. I thought of the broad, forgiving skies of the open range, vast enough to encompass all human failings, all the triumphs and tragedies of life. My forgiveness was like that, boundless and unconditional, a promise that our shared history, however painful, would not define our future. The distance between us, both physical and emotional, began to shrink. Could they truly believe that my forgiveness was genuine and that our family could truly start anew? Sarah launched herself into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. David joined the embrace, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, we were a family again, wrapped in the warmth of reconciliation, united by shared tears and unspoken apologies. It was a homecoming more profound than any journey across the vast plains. I felt the familiar comfort of their embrace, a return to the security of the family circle, stronger and more resilient for having weathered the storm. The scent of pine and hearth, the essence of home, filled my senses, a reminder of the enduring power of family, like the ancient, intertwining roots of a sacred tree. The room, once a battlefield, was now a sanctuary. What would this renewed bond mean for the future of our family, and how would we navigate the path forward together? As the last of their tears subsided, Sarah pulled back, her eyes still red-rimmed, but shining with a new clarity. "We have so much to make up for, Father," she said, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "We'll start by truly listening to you, truly seeing you." Her words were a promise, a commitment to a new beginning, a path forward built on understanding and respect. I recalled the vision of the vast, untouched landscape, full of new possibilities and unknown adventures, waiting to be explored. Our family, too, stood at the precipice of a new beginning, a chance to forge a new path, to rewrite our story with honesty and love as our guiding stars. The lingering scent of Thanksgiving dinner now felt like a promise, not a broken memory. What would be the first steps we took as a newly reconciled family to honor the past and build a stronger future? I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes for the first time in months. "There's nothing to make up for," I said softly, embracing them both again. "Only a future to build, together." The Thanksgiving feast, still untouched, now seemed to beckon, a symbol of the new beginning that awaited us, a celebration of rediscovered love and an unbreakable bond, forged anew in the crucible of truth. The journey had been long and painful, but we had found our way back, stronger and more connected than ever before. It was like the sun rising over the distant mountains, painting the sky with the promise of a new day, a fresh start after a long, dark night. Our story, once shadowed by misunderstanding, was now bathed in the light of truth and forgiveness. The warmth of their presence, the unspoken understanding in their eyes, was all the treasure I ever needed, more precious than any hidden gold. As we finally sat down at the table, a question lingered in the air, a whisper of hope for the future. What new adventures, what shared joys and challenges awaited our family on this unexpected path of reconciliation?